Hello everyone, welcome to our channel Careerstalk. My name is Sunan Sharma. I'm Agile consultant based in Netherlands, and today we are going to discuss product owner interview questions asked in various product-based companies. And all these questions were shared by our awesome group members who have participated in actual interviews. So if you also want to be part of our excellent community for both job opportunity and interview discussions, join our YouTube membership and become a part of our unique community. And to help us today, we are glad to have Arjit both with us, sorry. And he has over 2.5 decade of experience in IT industry. And throughout his vast career, he has worked in regions like USA and UK. And he is currently working as a project management consultant and has previously worked at companies such as IBM, EY, Wipro, Cognizant, and many more. So friends, before we start, I have a small request. If you find this session helpful, which I'm sure you will, please smash that like button and subscribe to our channel. So you will won't miss out any future session from Careerstalk. All right, let's get started. Hello, Arjit. Thank you for joining us today. Arjit, over to you. Good to see you today.
Yeah, thank you, Sunand, for having me on this wonderful Careerstalk channel. It's always a pleasure coming over here and discussing about project management with this vast community that you've built. So, looking
Thank you.
forward to this discussion today.
Okay,
Thank you.
wonderful. Okay, so let's start it then. The very first question is, how do you define a product roadmap in the context of a digital transformation for an enterprise client? So this
Yep.
question looks, friends, this question looks so easy, but believe me, it's very deep. Please, sorry, go ahead, Arjit.
Yes, absolutely, Sunand. Now, I have been fortunate to get a good amount of experience in the digital product space for the last 5 years or so, both from the delivery side within shared services and also as a consultant for a client in the energy sector. So, a large part of my responses today to the questions will be based on this more recent experience in the product space. So, yes, the roadmap for a digital transformation effort. So, this is something which is really important. So, how do we define a product roadmap? So, product roadmap is essentially a strategic plan that outlines how a new product or an existing product or a service will be uh, transforming the enterprise. Now, there is a fundamental difference between a project roadmap and a product roadmap. So we need to understand that. Wherein here, when we talk about product roadmap, the focus is on long-term business value and product outcomes, and not just the milestones or the implementation milestones, which are typically tracked as part of a project roadmap. Now, I will take a little bit of liberty taking a taking the information that PMI USA provides in terms of what a product roadmap is. So product roadmap typically starts with a growth phase, or rather I would say initial phase, a growth phase, then there is a maturity phase over a period of time, and finally there's a tapering down or a decommissioning phase. So how do I relate this to a typical digital product experience? So in your initial phase, typically we start off with a POC, a proof of concept, where we deliver certain key features, and that is typically targeted to a limited number of users or groups. Based on the feedback received from the POC, the next stage, which is the growth phase, is a major one where you do a full scale or a large scale pilot deployment. This typically has got a lot more volume in terms of number of users, spread in terms of number of regions, and so on. Now, at this time, typically in my experience, once there's a full scale deployment, the focus now moves from the development aspects of it to more on the operational support and the value realization aspect. So, how is the product actually meeting the value for the targeted users or for the market it's supposed to serve? And also the operational aspects of the product. Typically, there's a lot of time and resources allocated in this phase to ensure that the product is actually meeting the purpose for which it is envisioned. Then again, based on the demand from the users, from the stakeholders, enhancements are done, which becomes, which leads to again the maturity phase, where the product is enhanced with additional features, and now it gets into much more of a steady state thing. And of course, in the last phase, and which is over a period of time, the product may be decommissioned, or they might just be stop using it, or whatever the decision is taken. Then that's the last phase of the product. So essentially, these are the 4 stages typically in a product roadmap that a product manager or a product owner typically is accountable to.
Great.
Over to you, Sumit.
Yeah. Thank you, Arjit. So I think just to add very quickly, I think as a product owner, our role is to, especially in a roadmap, is to first of all come up with the customer needs and the pain points, whether it's internal users, or business stakeholder, or external clients, and then maybe we can come up with our business objective. So why we are doing it, right? I mean, so the efficiency, or
Yes.
the cost reduction, or the revenue growth, and perhaps the technical feasibility. So whether we are going to do an integration with a legacy system, or it's about the scalability. And of course, we have to prioritize all these initiatives based on the value, or the complexity, or the dependencies, as you mentioned, right? So yeah, I was part of one of the banking client was there. It's a big client, and we have done that. So again, I think I can resonate with you, whatever you mentioned about it. So yeah, I think great elaborated answer. Thank you, Arjit, for that. Okay, so shall we move on to the next question?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, okay, so if you are, let's say, a product owner or product manager, so what are the key consideration for achieving the organizational change readiness, and how you get the buy-in from, when you are going to introduce all these new digital solution? Because there will be a lot of pushback, and people will be not be aware about it. A lot of chaos will be there. So how you are going to manage all this?
Yeah. So that's a great question, Sunand. It's very fundamental when you introduce any change into the system. And there is pushback, there is resistance. And so what is important as part of organizational change readiness is not just the workflow realignment in terms of the new roles and responsibilities that the product or the service may bring, but also changing the mindsets and behaviors, which is why I found that bringing in a dedicated business change lead into the product team is very crucial. Now, these skills typically, in my experience, they don't come easily, neither do they come cheap. So that's why having the necessary budgetary allocation and also a roadmap in terms of how their role will evolve, what is the impact that they would create as the product develops is really important. So typically, what the business change lead does is they work with the business users, the various stakeholders on the client side, or any other stakeholders per se, even on the IT team as well, to understand the solution. Now, they take this information and come up with what we call a change impact assessment. The change impact assessment identifies the necessary adjustments and working mostly with the business and also with the IT stakeholders. From the assessment, they create a change impact plan. And this change impact plan is important both on the product roadmap and also on the project roadmap. The product manager at the end of the day is accountable to the execution of the plan, while the business change lead typically works on the ground to ensure that all the deliverables or the scope of that work, which is outlined in the impact plan, is being met. So this is essentially why the role of a business change lead is very important to the program. So, so essentially, before any product goes live, there has to be an alignment with respect to all the stakeholders, not only the business, they understand the change, they have executed the plan, and the end users and the clients, they are actually ready to take on this product in the live environment. So that's why I just wanted to stress that it's a really important role when it comes to a digital product space. Over to you, Sum.
Great, Arjit. Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, let's move on to our next question. So next question is on a security and a compliance part. So how you are going to address IT security and the legal compliance from the very beginning of a product life cycle, specifically if it's a highly regulated industry, so what you are going to do about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, The energy sector, again, is got a lot of regulations that come in from time to time. And IT security and legal compliance is a very key aspect when it comes to deploying any new product or service into the system. So, taking my example from this experience with the global energy major, there is a process which I remember it was called the PIRA, or the Project Impact and Risk Assessment. Essentially, what happens early on is once we have the requirements and once we have a very high level understanding of the solution, various stakeholders, say your business analyst, your product owner, your operational lead, your technical architect, and also your global risk and compliance team, they come in and we try to answer a set of questions. Now, by answering these set of questions, we come up with a overall risk assessment when it comes to IT security. Now, this is the first phase, and we take this information, and this information is the foundation for the scope of compliance for this particular product. So now, once the scope is defined, it's all about ensuring that this scope for the IT security and legal compliance is integrated into the product management plan, and they are also happening in parallel or as per the schedule, so that by the time all of these scope compliance activities are completed, once we get into the operation readiness and the deployment. So one of the challenges here, Sunand, I faced is typically the security and compliance folks, they are not part of the product team because they would be part of their function and they would be deployed to various initiatives for various in the various areas of the client or across multiple clients. So again, securing the right resources with the right quantities early enough is important so that they are also able to work in parallel with the project team and ensure that they are able to complete the scope that's outlined for them. So there are some challenges here, and we did face quite a few of them in terms of integrating their work and trying to understand what typically should be in compliance and what should not be. Now, in many cases, there is not much scope for adjustments there, especially when you have industry which is regulated. So all of these are some of the challenges that typically come in when you have a proper and a formal IT security and legal compliance process that goes in. So that's essentially. I hope this kind of helps in trying to understand the importance of IT security and legal compliance in the broader product development space.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Arjit, for sharing that real life example. Wonderful. Uh, let's move on to our next question. And next question is like, what are the important or critical steps and milestones in a product life cycle? So, from initial concept to the successful go-to-market launch, from start to
Yeah.
end. If you can share, some of your thought, that will be great.
Yes. And absolutely, this is really interesting because it's important to differentiate again between the product lifecycle and also the project lifecycle, because again, both of them move in parallel. While the product, again, the whole aspect is to ensure that it envisions the value, which again can be achieved by the successful completion of the various milestones that are done as part of a project. So there are various critical phases that any enterprise product goes through, and none of them exist in isolation. Everything is connected to each other. And the key challenge for any product manager is to ensure that all of these phases are integrated and they are successfully contributing to the outcomes. So I think, as you were saying earlier, Sunan, so it all starts with a business analysis phase where we have certain problem statements that a product owner or the business comes up with. We end up creating a business case. The business case can be a short form or can be really detailed, wherein we do various types of analysis, feasibilities, uh, architectural feasibility, and we do the value realization aspects. So we prepare a business case analysis, business case document along with a benefits plan, and we take this to the stakeholders and get it approved. So at that point, we are ready to kick off the project per se, and we get into the product development. Of course, the product development per se will have various phases in between. And typically it follows an agile framework. And you would have your solution architecture, your technical build, your system testing, user acceptance testing, and so on. Then certain things sit outside. They are not directly into product development, but they sit in parallel. One which we already discussed, which is IT security and legal compliance. Now, when we define the compliance scope, it's important that whatever controls are being developed, they're built in both into the development and also the operational standpoint. So it's also important that the development team during the software development phases are able to take care and take care of those components when they're doing the product development in the development environments as well. So the IT security is there. We have the infrastructure readiness. Now, this is a very crucial step, especially in large organizations with tens and hundreds of thousands of enterprise applications, because it's important that at a platform level, the architecture of the solution is understood and we have the necessary capacity and the scalability in the hosting environment, both for the short-term growth and the long-term growth of the product. Now, this is another crucial aspect typically where we interface with the platform owners and other cloud leads to ensure that your product has got a space over there and the infrastructure will actually support the product as it goes live and in the growth phases thereafter. So infrastructure readiness is also an important aspect of it. And then we also spoke about the business change readiness that also goes on in parallel. And then, of course, finally, we have the operational transition. Now, in operational transition, again, we establish the processes and the procedures that are necessary for the support teams to successfully support the product once it is launched into the production environment. The operational readiness typically sits outside where you typically have a transition lead that works closely with certain members of the project team. It could be your product owner or your product manager and the technical folks to ensure that the various aspects of support, like preparing a support model, and is all reviewed, approved, and all in place before the product goes live. And the final phase is, of course, the release, which ensures that the product is successfully released into the live environment. Of course, we have a hypercare phase after that as well. And release and hypercare, again, is the last phase in the product development cycle.
So I have
I
one
would say
question,
product
Ajit.
development and deployment cycle. Yeah.
Sorry, I just have a small question. So I heard about this GTM, GTM planning. So is this a part of this only, like go-to-market planning, where we, define our GTM strategy, we define our target segment, pricing, positioning, all the marketing material, or like we are going to train different customer support teams, things and that. A lot of things we are going to do. How we are going to
Yeah.
launch all this campaign around it, how to onboard the customers and things like that. So are this also a part of this?
Yes, absolutely. So GTM is a very business and strategic word. Instead of using going into live environment or deploying to production, the right word is GTM or the go-to-market. And essentially, before a product goes to the market or it's launched for the actual operational purposes,
Mhm.
all of this business change readiness, including the marketing and the promotional campaigns, all of that has to get completed or they have to meet the scope meet the scope of the work essentially.
Okay.
So your collateral, your training materials, your user manuals, all of that is part of your business change readiness.
Okay. So if I have to summarize, so we have, let's say, ideation state, the very first one, and then the milestone is the approved concept in a business case. Then we have a, let's say, vision or a strategy. So we have a vision statement as a roadmap, which is approved. Then we have a requirement. So we have, let's say, our backlog, prioritize, and MVP defined. Then we have a design phase where we have our prototype and technical design is approved. Then we have actual development. So we will going to deliver the MVP, all the features are completed. Then we move to the next one, which is testing. So all the QA and the compliance sign off, everything is going to happen. And then we have our, let's say, pilot program beta program which is completed, and then we are having our GTM planning, which we just discussed, and then we have a final launch. So it's just the right sequence, right, which I just mentioned.
Yes, absolutely. The only thing is, of course, you may have a POC or you may have a full board pilot. Now, POC is
Okay.
typically not tagged with a GTM because it's done to a limited number of users. But a pilot deployment or a full scale one is definitely part of your go-to-market or GTM launch. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. Wonderful. Okay, so let's move on to our next question. How do you prepare end users for this kind of change? And how you're going to measure the product adoption, that, okay, it's actually creating some value for the customers. So how you're going to do that?
Yes. Yes. Again, it's a great question, and it ties in with the earlier response on shifting the mindsets and behaviors when we have a new product that needs to get launched and it needs to get adopted by the end users. And when I was working for this client, there was an initiative to digitize 15 plus odd legacy systems, which were Excel based macro tools into a under Pega solution. And when this initiative came on the table, there was a little bit of problems in terms of uh, issues and trying to accept or whether this is possible or not. So what was decided by the client and also the stakeholders is instead of going with a big bang approach and starting with all of them, why don't we just use a phased implementation and look at just one to two key applications? So this was very important and shifting the mindset a little bit, wherein we know that everybody understands that we are all trying to bring about change and transformation, but at the same time, we want to do it or do what actually means success for the organization. So we started off with this approach. And again, as going back to my previous answer, we got in a change consultant, and it was important to understand the user's concerns and also the potential work impacts. We then worked out a strategy, and one very unique thing we did was the change consultant suggested that why don't you bring in the end user representatives into your product or the project itself. Now that way they will there's a greater meaning and the fact that they will be able to appreciate all the work that we'll be doing as well. So this strategy worked out really well when we started bringing in a few representatives who actually contributed to details around how this new solution would be looked like. And you know, when you look at senior professionals, working on spreadsheets or doing something for a very long period of time, everybody likes innovation. So people will want to contribute more and they will always see the value in it. So we did get some very good ideas from these end users itself. And it was actually a really win-win situation. So besides just avoiding surprises at a particular point later in the project, we were able to get them to test the product, give the feedback, and then we would take in their consideration as well and then move forward. So these discussions and then status reviews and brainstorming sessions, it led to a lot of good collaboration. And instead of initially they were like skeptical users, they became much more active participants and innovators. And eventually, this really did help the launch, and the product actually was well acknowledged and well accepted by the users. So that was the instance wherein bringing in your actual end users into your product lifecycle can reap huge dividends for the company.
Wonderful. Thank you, Arjit. Okay, so let's move on to our next question. So as a product manager, as a product owner, what are the important or critical component of a smooth transition according to you? And if you can also, share that how you will ensure that your team is operational ready for this new product launch. So what are the things, preparation, which you are going to do in a real time basis? If you can give some examples, that will be great.
Yes. Thanks, Sunan. And essentially, this question talks about the role of a transition leader or transition manager. And I was fortunate to play this role, and we used to call it deployment lead. for, again, this particular client in the energy sector, where we had to deploy certain product data stores from various on-prem locations to the AWS cloud. So ensuring a smooth transition and the operational readiness hinges on having a very comprehensive readiness checklist. Now, this readiness checklist would span multiple phases or workflows. And what we observed was it is important because it doesn't have to really be an end user or a user facing application, because even a database or a data store, there could be impacts as well in terms of scalability and performance, which may not be directly visible to the users, but they are again important to be fully understood and approved as well, right, before it goes live. So some of the areas in the spreadsheet or the checklist that a typical deployment consultant does in this particular type of engagement. Number one is your asset and business readiness. Now, here I'm clubbing both your asset in terms of it could be a group of people, it could be a country, as in this case, and also the various aspects of the business within that country. Now, there could be certain contracts, or rather the agreement to deploy a particular data store from on-premises onto AWS cloud in this country. So there were certain agreements in place. So we had to ensure that those agreements and alignments are in place. And then securing the post-deployment measurement agreements in terms of how the asset or how the client or the organization will actually measure the benefits from this deployment. And of course, any user training and support related activities. The second aspect is the product and also the data readiness. Again, the product readiness we already spoke about. It's the product development. Has it completed the various development aspects, testing, UAT, design, and so on and so forth? And is it ready for launch? The data readiness, again, as we know, like data has got its own life cycle as well. Now, if you are migrating data from on-premises to cloud, there is a lot of readiness involved in terms of ensuring the data quality, uh, preparing those pipelines and setting up all those infrastructure, doing a data quality assurance. So all of this typically forms a part of the data readiness aspect when it comes to the point of migrating large data stores. Data readiness also involved in this case certain data insight dashboards that had to be prepared and in place as well in order to measure certain aspects of the data. The third thing, again, we already spoke about this, is the infrastructure readiness or the platform readiness. Now, as part of this, certain countries, Sunand, as we know, there are restrictions in terms of data in the cloud, right? So there would be certain workers' councils or local bodies, or certain aspects where you have to allocate certain time and money and resources to ensure that those activities are completed. So in terms of infrastructure readiness, this has to be taken into consideration, and any approval for any exception in that country has to be taken. So all of this is part of infrastructure readiness. And of course, this ties into your IT security and legal compliance as well, right? Because the output of IT security and legal compliance uh, is required in order to ensure that the deployment can happen in this particular region or this country. Then the user acceptance testing says that your business and your client stakeholders have actually signed off on the product or the solution. And finally, the operation support. We all know that whether it is a data store or any backend application or any front end or a user-centric application, a detailed support model is really important to ensure that the product receives the right level of support once it goes live. So here, the certain things in the checklist for a transition lead are a completed and approved support model, then the user access and identity management, that is another area which has to be in place. And also defining a hypercare agreement, and also a strategy for future deployments. So all of these, I think I spoke about 6 of them: asset and business readiness, product and data, infrastructure, user acceptance, and operational support. So now all of these components typically, once they are completed, they're all reviewed and aligned with stakeholders during a pre-cap meeting or a pre-change assessment board meeting. And once everybody is aligned in this pre-cap meeting, it actually paves the way for the actual launch as per the organization change management procedures. So that was essentially a summary of the process that was followed in my brief role as a deployment consultant for this client.
Wonderful. Great, Arjit. Thank you. And I'm just looking at the time. I think it's a time for us to take a break. So, friends, we'll continue with our this session in our next part. So, there's going to be a part 2 for sure. But I think for a time being, we are good, Arjit. So, thank you again for sharing all your uh, ideas, your wisdom with all of us. And thank you, friends, for joining us today who are there till the end. And yeah, we hope that you found it helpful and informative. This session is not for each and everyone, only for serious people who really need an in-depth answer, I think, Arjit. So you really nail it. I think the way you have answered it, it shows your vast experience. So I thoroughly enjoyed this session, to be very honest. And friends, if you are also enjoyed this session, if you learned something new today, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And we hope to see you in our next session. Until then, take care. This is Sunil Sharma signing off along with Arjit. Thank you. Bye bye. Thank you, Arjit, one more time.
Thank you.
Thank you.